Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was one of the most divisive Call of Duty games in recent memory, especially when it came to its multiplayer and zombies. Looking back on it now, I generally enjoyed Black Ops 6, and I still consider it one of the top 10 Call of Duties of all time. However, the closer we get to the final DLC of Black Ops 7 and the next Modern Warfare, the harder it is for me to ignore the glaring problems Black Ops 6 had, especially in zombies and multiplayer. So in this video, I'm going to break down each mode and talk about what worked, what didn't, and why my opinion on the game has changed over time. Sit back and enjoy my retrospective on Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
And there can be no doubt, Operation Desert Storm is working.
Black Ops 6's campaign takes place after the events of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, during the earliest stages of Operation Desert Storm. We follow CIA operatives Marshall and Case, along with their handler, Operations Specialist Jane Harrow, as they are deployed to the Iraq-Kuwait border to extract Iraqi Minister of Defense Saeed Alawi. But the mission goes off the rails when Saeed claims he's being hunted by a paramilitary force called Pantheon.
Who exactly is that? Is that us?
No, not Iraqi either.
Pantheon. We need to leave. You won't stand a chance against them.
After surviving an encounter with Pantheon soldiers, the team prepares to extract Saeed, only for him to be executed by Russell Adler, a rogue operative who fled the CIA after being framed.
Everyone all right?
Is this your... No!
Adler!
Stand down!
Adler allows himself to be captured, but before he goes, he tells Marshall to relay a message to Frank Woods. Bishop takes Rook.
Condition, Mr. Woods. So why was he trying to tell you something in Kuwait? Bishop takes Rook. Any idea what that means?
Afterward, CIA Deputy Director Daniel Livingstone reprimands the team for Saeed's death, dismisses their warnings about Pantheon, and suspends Woods, Marshall, and Case from duty. So far, the introduction to the story is incredibly strong. We get the explosive Call of Duty action everyone expects, but we also get genuine mystery. Why did Adler kill Saeed? What exactly is Pantheon? The campaign gives you enough information to understand what is happening in the moment, while still leaving room for questions, speculation, and tension. It hooks you immediately. After the mission, Woods explains that Bishop Takes Rook refers to an abandoned KGB safe house in Bulgaria, codenamed The Rook. Once Marshall, Woods, and Case set up there, the investigation into Pantheon really begins. And honestly, the safe house has one of the best ideas Treyarch had ever had in a campaign. It gave players something Call of Duty campaigns usually don't: downtime. You could explore the property, find secrets, collect lore, and talk to the other characters outside of combat. That might sound small, but it added so much. It made the team feel like actual people instead of just mission briefers between gunfights. It also helped the world feel lived in. You weren't just jumping from explosion to explosion, you were actually sitting with these characters, learning who they are, and absorbing the atmosphere. For me, the safe house is one of the strongest points of the entire campaign. While Harrow covers for the team back at the CIA, Marshall, Woods, and Case dig deeper into Pantheon and eventually recruit Felix Newman, a technical genius, and Sev, an assassin. From there, the plot escalates fast. The team breaks Adler out of a CIA black site beneath Washington, D.C. during a major political event above ground. They manage to extract him just as Pantheon attacks the facility, but the team is blamed for the assault and declared fugitives.
It wasn't us.
Try.
They hit the place before we got through the door. Tore it apart.
Jesus, Troy, you're talking about Capital Station? It is all hands on deck here. What the hell happened?
We busted Adler out.
You broke into a CIA black site to free Russell Adler. Are you out of your mind?
Something's going on, Jane. Something big. Okay, Adler was right.
The agency is compromised.
Adler then reveals that Pantheon has been involved in weapons deals with Saddam Hussein. With help from Helen Park and allied SAS forces, the team assaults one of Hussein's palaces in Iraq, where they uncover the Cradle, a psychochemical weapon linked to an abandoned CIA biolab in Kentucky. One thing that made the Black Ops 6 campaign stand out, at least to me, was how the missions gave you multiple ways to approach your objective. It was not an open world in the Modern Warfare 3 sense, but it also was not rigidly linear. It sat in this sweet spot where missions felt focused while still giving you freedom. My favorite example of this is the mission Most Wanted. The mission gives you multiple ways to get what you need, and the flexibility is exactly why I think the campaign has so much replayability. Black Ops 6 gives the player freedom without losing pacing. These missions are not massive open environments, but they feel bigger than they are because the game gives you so many options. It lets you explore, observe, and solve problems in different ways. That makes the campaign feel less like a straight line and more like an actual spy story. And that is where I think Black Ops 6 succeeded in a way that some other recent Call of Duty campaigns did not. Modern Warfare 3 tried to present itself as broader and more open, but somehow still felt restrictive and artificial. Black Ops 6 did the opposite. Its missions were smaller but more controlled and more focused, yet they still give the player enough agency to feel immersed. The result is a campaign that feels smarter than it looks. Later in the story, Adler stays behind to track down Matvey Gusev, Pantheon's lead scientist, while Case, Marshall, and Sev investigate the biolab. Case gets separated, accidentally inhales the cradle, and experiences a hallucination that reveals Pantheon was once a CIA division developing the cradle as a performance-enhancing drug.
Test subject 18 has been infected with the cradle. She's now in proximity to our control subject. Transmission should occur momentarily.
It's a biological weapon. You know this already.
Keep watching.
Is it faster this time?
Faster, yes. And more aggressive, as requested.
Wonderful.
With Case as its only test subject before Livingstone shut the project down. Once he regains his senses, Case learns that Pantheon has stolen the cradle and that Harrow is involved. The team follows a money trail to a casino in Avalon and discovers that Gusev has been receiving funding from there. After reuniting with Adler in Kuwait, they work with Captain Sims to capture Gusev, who reveals that the cradle has been hidden in Vorkuta. During the raid on Vorkuta, the team captures Harrow but fails to stop the cradle from being moved. Back at the Rook, Adler uses Truth Serum on Harrow, and she reveals Pantheon's plan to stage a false flag attack on the capital in order to discredit Livingstone. Pantheon operatives then rescue her, leading Case to chase the getaway helicopter. He boards it mid-escape, it crashes into the river, and under the influence of the cradle gas, he strangles Harrow before presumably drowning. Two weeks later, Marshall contacts Case over the radio and tells him that Livingstone managed to evacuate the capital, but he gets no response. The team reunites with Livingstone, who now wants them to operate as a rogue unit and eliminate Pantheon, which is still active in Avalon. At the same time, Jackson Kane infiltrates Livingstone's office to access sensitive information, clearly setting up the next chapter of the story. And overall, I cannot overstate how much I enjoyed playing this campaign at launch. Once I finished it, I was genuinely excited to see where the Black Ops storyline was going to go next, especially with the cradle and everything surrounding Pantheon. This campaign had a really strong balance between action and mystery, and that balance is what made it stick with me. Treyarch took risks here, and for the most part, those risks paid off. One of the best examples is the moment Case inhales the cradle after falling down the elevator shaft. That entire sequence leans into zombie-like horror in a way I did not expect from the campaign, and it actually got a few genuine reactions out of me. It was tense, weird, and memorable. More importantly, it showed that the developers were willing to push the tone a little further than usual. I could feel the effort in this campaign. I could feel the developers cared about the story and wanted it to feed into the larger Black Ops universe in a meaningful way. And for most of the runtime, I think it absolutely works. That said, my biggest issue with the campaign is the final stretch. I think the last few missions lose momentum and the ending feels rushed. The section involving Harrow, especially when the narrative starts digging deeper into her drama and motives, just did not land for me the way it needed to. Instead of feeling tragic, it felt dragged out. The problem is that the campaign does not spend enough time making me care about her before asking me to care about her downfall. The game wants that reveal to hit hard, but it never gives her enough screen time, development, or emotional weight for it to really connect. Compare that to someone like Graves betraying Task Force 141. That betrayal worked because the game had already spent enough time building him up. You understand his presence, his personality, and his role in the story. So when that turn happened, it felt like something.
Shadow one.
Hook, line, and fucking sinker. That's what I'm talking about, Shadows! You know I love that shit! You are in bed with the cartel, Hassan. If you disappeared, no one would know where to look for the fucking stain. Take a look around, Hassan. Now you can either become part of the food chain, or you can start talking. I want the missiles, I want the target, and I want Hassan. And you've got 10 seconds, or I'm gonna show you the difference between the military and me.
With Harrow, I understand what the game was trying to do, but I never felt it. Her hatred of Adler and her willingness to destroy innocent lives because of what happened to her parents just felt underdeveloped. At least for me, it never fully clicked. And then there's the ending. We get Case jumping onto Harrow's helicopter, the crash into the water, the fight, and Harrow's death, and then a fade to black before the epilogue. It is dramatic, but it is also another one of those Black Ops endings that feel intentionally vague just for the sake of being vague. Cold War did something similar, and Black Ops 6 leans into that same ambiguity again. At a certain point, I just want a clearer ending. However, the characters such as Sev, Adler, Woods, and Marshall are done very well and came across as actual vulnerable people instead of a generic action movie protagonists. One of the best examples of this is Woods. In Black Ops 1 and 2, we see Woods as a typical 80s action movie, a badass expert soldier who can do anything. But seeing him in a wheelchair and left out of action made me feel bad for him because, just like Marshall said, he's a soldier. He needs to be put out into the field, and being confined to a wheelchair is clearly taking a mental toll on him. We see the pain, and it's amazing to watch.
Hey, what's going on? It's strange, man. Even if we clear our names, get out alive, don't think I can go back to the same life. This thing we got here, this group, it's good in its own fucked up way. No, but I haven't told anyone this yet. With Mason gone, I want to look after his boy, bring him up. I owe Mason that. And that kid, he's a good one. David. He's gonna amount to something someday. Maybe. I'm willing to give it a try, anyway. He'll need somebody. Yeah, man. Enjoy Kuwait.
That's one of the biggest compliments I can give this campaign. The characters feel like they have soul and genuine effort put into them. Still, even with the criticism, I think the campaign is solid. I would absolutely recommend playing it if you can get the game on sale. It has a strong cast, a decent villain faction, excellent mission design, and a lot more personality than recent Call of Duty campaigns. This section will be short because I did not spend much time in the multiplayer, but even with that said, I still think it's the weakest part about Black Ops 6. My biggest issue with the multiplayer was the lack of strong post-launch support. Modern Warfare 3, for all its problems, did have a better job of keeping players engaged with content. Black Ops 6 never really had that same momentum. The weapons felt lackluster, the maps had very little personality, and while Omni movement worked well in zombies, it felt miserable to play against in multiplayer. Yes, part of that is absolutely a skill issue on my end, I can admit that, but even outside of that, there was just not enough fun content to keep me interested beyond the dark matter grind. Once the novelty wore off, the mode started to feel repetitive and flat. Then we have SBMM, which unsurprisingly became one of the biggest talking points around this mode. It felt way too strict. God forbid you have a good few matches in a row, because the game would immediately respond by throwing you into lobbies that felt miserable to play. And speaking of that frustration, there was once even a conspiracy theory floating around that the game would secretly nerf your damage mid-match depending on how well you were doing. The developers denied that, obviously, but the fact that so many players were willing to believe it says a lot about how bad the overall matchmaking experience felt. Whether that rumor was true or not is almost beside the point. players were frustrated enough to believe it. That is what really made the multiplayer so divisive. The casual players felt like they could not keep up, and the better players felt like they were constantly being punished for doing well. It created this weird middle ground where neither side was really having fun. Everybody was irritated just for different reasons. Outside of that, the loadout system itself wasn't too bad. You had your mix of wildcards, perks, lethal, tacticals, primaries, and secondaries. One addition I really liked was the dedicated melee slot. It reminded me a lot of Counter-Strike, where pulling out your knife lets you move faster. That added a small but nice layer of decision making. Do you sacrifice immediate firepower for mobility, or do you keep your gun out and play it safer? It was not revolutionary, but it did give the multiplayer at least one little mechanic that felt distinct. That said, in hindsight, I do not think most players used it in a meaningful way unless they were carrying those habits over from zombies. So even one of those things I liked about multiplayer still felt a little undercooked. Overall, the multiplayer was forgettable. The maps were bland, the guns did not excite me, the post-launch support was weak, and SBMM made casual play feel exhausting. For me, this part of Black Ops 6 felt doomed from the start.
Oh fuck, no, that's the worst decision you could ever make. Right now, that's the worst decision you can make. Just get in the elevator, get it, go.
Now we're getting into the real meat of the discussion. Black Ops 6 Zombies was one of the most hyped and divisive zombies experiences we've had in a long time. You either hated it or you liked it. There was no middle ground. Personally, I enjoyed Black Ops 6 Zombies, but hindsight is 2020, and now I completely understand why so many players never clicked with it. One of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, was how much it still carried that Warzone-style design philosophy. These mechanics did not suddenly appear in Black Ops 6. We had already seen armor show up in Call of Duty World War II in a much simpler form, and even back then, a lot of players were not fans of the idea. Then Cold War Zombies went even further by adding both armor and weapon rarity. Armor reduced incoming damage while rarity upgrades increased weapon strength and color-coded tiers, just like a battle royale. On paper, that gave the mode more progression. In practice, it also changed the entire feel of Zombies. The old system was simple and effective. With Juggernog, you understood the danger. You understood the hit system. You understood the risks of getting trapped while training. That created tension and a skill gap. But once armor and the newer health systems came in, the tensions changed. You could make more mistakes and still survive. You could bulldoze through situations that would have dropped you instantly in older games. That is where I think the frustration came from. It is not that zombies became easier, it is that the consequences of bad positioning stopped feeling as punishing. The dread was reduced, and in a mode like Zombies, that dread matters. Weapon rarity adds to that problem. Not only did you have to pack a punch 3 times, but you also had to grind, salvage, and upgrade rarity. Looking back, that whole setup loop really did become repetitive. It made late round preparation more tedious, and it made experimenting with multiple weapons much less appealing because getting a second gun up to full strength took way too much time and too many resources. This issue carried over into Black Ops 6, and honestly, it still carried into Black Ops 7 as well. I understand the idea behind it. On paper, armor and rarity give players more progression and more systems to engage with. But in the long run, especially on higher rounds, they do not really add much depth. They just slow down the setup and punish players who want variety. As for the maps themselves, they were an interesting lineup, but I do not think they brought out the best of Black Ops 6 consistently. Liberty Falls, for example, always felt like Warzone or multiplayer map with zombies dropped into it. I understand that the outbreak had only just begun, so the town was not supposed to look completely destroyed yet. That part made sense, but even with that explanation, the map still looked too clean and too normal. And when Liberty Falls was first revealed before launch, it honestly looked worse than the final version. There was barely any destruction, barely any visual storytelling, and barely any sense of that zombie outbreak that even happened. It looked like you had just walked into a regular town on an empty afternoon. When Treyarch later said that the footage came from an earlier build and that the final version will be adjusted, I could not help but feel like they only made those changes because of the backlash.
Like you said, Lego was on round 5, so here we go. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Very first ever Liberty Falls live gameplay. Drop a thumbs up. Here we go.
Alpha Team, this is Chief of Security Blanchard. Are you a sight for sore eyes? I've been holed up in the mansion since...
Thank you. I wish I exfilled on 41, but I'll take it. But there we go. I think that's as good of a game.
Now, to be fair, changing something because your audience wants something better is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. But when it comes to zombies, I do not think you should have to overhaul the entire map aesthetic because the community points out the obvious. We have had over a decade of zombies map at this point. The atmosphere should already be second nature. Every map after Liberty Falls was at least more interesting to me, even if not all of them landed. Citadel Day More was fantastic in terms of atmosphere and overall design. The setting was strong, the boss fight was fun, and the wonder weapons were generally cool. Having 4 swords, each with its own identity and ultimate ability, was a great idea. The Lion Sword, Raven Sword, Lightning Sword, and Fire Sword all felt distinct, and that the fact that you could parry incoming attacks, including an amalgam hook, made the whole system feel even better. It was stylish, satisfying, and memorable. Then we got the Tomb, which was one of the most average zombie experiences I've ever played. This is around the time when the voice actors were going on strike for AI protections and the layoffs were hitting Treyarch, and you could feel the abstinence overall of the map. The main cast barely interacted, the dialogue was dry, the little personality that had carried the earlier maps was just not there, and the lack of character banter hurt more than I expected.
Raptor 1, I'm at the LZ. Let's get the hell out of here.
There is more to be done now that you've secured the Sentinel artifact. Bring it directly to me. I have gathered every available file on the history and previous uses of this ancient device. It appears several times in the historical record. Some date back to ancient Egypt. I have deciphered steps to activate and control it. The artifact requires an infusion of exotic materials. Unique elements that can only be harvested here at Liberty Falls. I have already ensured everything we need is ready for your arrival. You will see your lost Agent Maxis again soon. I'll be waiting.
Zombies maps live and die on atmosphere, cast chemistry, and momentum. When you finish a major Easter egg and the ending cutscene had almost no meaningful dialogue, it leaves the whole thing feeling hollow. That is exactly how the Tomb felt to me. At the time, I was still invested in Black Ops 6's zombie story. I liked the setup from Liberty Falls and Citadel, and I wanted more. Instead, the Tomb felt bare bones. The boss fight felt weak, and yeah, I'm gonna say it felt like fighting a piece of furniture. And the wonder weapon did not help. The ice staff being there just felt random. Why bring back an old weapon that does not even really fit into the map's theme and overall aesthetic? This map was my version of Die Rise. It disappointed me so much that I generally started wondering if BO6 was cooked. Then came Shattered Veil, and honestly, this was one of my favorite maps in Black Ops 6. I love the aesthetic, I love the music, and I especially love the moment when I first entered the mansion. The giant dinosaur statue mixed with that old, decaying, almost haunted house environment gave it this weird Jumanji-like energy that I absolutely loved. That said, I understand why it's not everyone's favorite. Reusing enemies like the Doppelcast and the Disciple did make the map feel less unique than it could have been. I really do not understand why Treyarch kept bringing back enemies that had already been used elsewhere instead of designing something new for the setting. Even so, I still had a great time with Shattered Veil. Heading into the basement and seeing that huge Samantha AI structure was a generally cool moment. The map felt fresh, and when I played it, I thought the Raygun Mark II variants added so much replay value. Each version had its own identity and gave players another reason to come back. Even here though, I still think the original wonder weapon would have pushed the map even further. Lastly, we have Reckoning, which I found very underwhelming, especially for a map that was clearly supposed to be the bridge into Black Ops 7. The first time exploring it was cool, but after multiple playthroughs, it became repetitive and visually dull. The tower jumping traversal is a neat visual gimmick, but once you are set up, it barely matters unless you're doing the Easter egg. And because the lobby area is such a large circle, surviving into higher rounds feels almost too easy. The Easter egg itself is also not that memorable. I only really started paying attention near the end, where you have to choose between Sam and Richtofen. That choice is cool in theory, but the map around still felt rushed, like Treyarch was already halfway out the door and focused on Black Ops 7. Now that the maps are out of the way, what about the actual zombie story? Liberty Falls takes place right after the teaser with Richtofen, but instead of playing as the main cannon crew, you play as a security team trying to contain the outbreak in the town. The issue is that the game does not communicate that very well. Most players are probably going to miss the setup because it is buried into the brief intro dialogue. As you work through the Easter egg, you hear from a man named Panos, who is trapped in a church pocket dimension and needs your help escaping.
Project Terra's security, yes? A so-called rapid response team.
Not nearly rapid enough, but I knew you would come. I'm Dr. Pericles Panos. I used to oversee dimensional research at Project Janus. And this is a little pocket of perdition that, unlike you, I am quite unable to leave. Somehow my dimensional resonance got, reset when we tried to close the breach, trapping me in the dark ether. But now, now that you are here, we can finally end this nightmare.
Once you finish the Easter egg and beat the boss, Panos betrays you and leaves you trapped inside. The story there is very basic, but basic does not automatically mean bad. In fact, I think Liberty Falls works because it asks just enough questions to keep you curious. Who is Panos? How did he get trapped there? Why should we trust him? It is not a deep map narratively, but it does its job. The real zombie story kicks off in Terminus, where we watch Peck and Maya break Weaver, Carver, and Gray out of prison. This picks up after Cold War, where Richtofen, acting as the administrator, had them locked away to keep them from talking about their experiences with the zombies and the Dark Aether. That setup alone is already more interesting than Liberty Falls because it immediately reconnects us with a familiar character in long-running Fallout from Cold War. From there, Terminus follows the group as they try to escape the island and secure Peck's warheads. Along the way, Maya is forced to confront what happened to her brother after he was kidnapped and experimented on in an attempt to create zombie soldiers. After the Kraken boss fight, the team escapes with Raptor 1 and Strauss and sets out to find Richtofen. At this point, the story was actually pretty good. The cast had chemistry, the objectives made sense, and the game was slowly building up both its villains and its mystery. We were learning more about the experiments, the damage they caused, and the people caught in the middle of them. Then we reached Citadel Daymore, and honestly, this is where I think the story peaked. We meet Ravenoff, a now broken man who lost hope and drinks himself into isolation. We see Kraft return, and we start learning more about the Syndicate and the influence of these mafia families in a broader zombie storyline. That was interesting to me. The game was expanding its world in a way that felt natural, and the cast still had a dysfunctional family chemistry that made them fun to follow. Unfortunately, that momentum drops hard once the tomb arrives. Like I said earlier, this was around the period when the voice actor strikes and broader industry instability were clearly affecting things, and the story suffers because of it. The cast has almost no meaningful interaction, and the entire map mostly exists just to secure the Sentinel artifact, which Richtofen is also hunting. Beyond that, there is not much there. The map lacks energy, the characters lack presence, and the story feels like it's just going through motions. Shattered Veil did improve things somewhat and brought back some of the lost momentum, but I still wish the reunion with Richtofen had more weight behind it. I wanted more anger, more conflict, more argument, especially from Weaver. The team starts working with him too quickly for my taste, even if they do not exactly trust him. And when Richtofen warns them not to hand over what Sam AI wants, the crew mostly dismisses him without really pressuring him for information. That is one of the more frustrating parts of the story for me. You do not have to trust Richtofen, but if someone like him is warning you that giving something to Sam AI is going to have major consequences, maybe stop and ask a few more questions before making the worst possible decision. Then we get to Reckoning at Janus Towers, and for the final map, it doesn't really deliver. Aside from the ending cutscene, I found the story there was boring and underwhelming. Hearing that Forsaken from Cold War had been trapped in another AI only for the game to do almost exactly nothing with that idea was such a waste. There's all this build up around Sam, the Sentinel artifact in the final, and then the payoff just never fully lands. Sam gets defeated, Richtofen's family comes back into the picture, and then the rest of the cast gets thrown into the Dark Aether. And that's it. We do not get much closure. We do not get to see what happens to Richtofen. It is all set up for the future and not enough payoff for the present. Maybe Black Ops 7 expands on that in a satisfying way, which so far it has. But as a final to Black Ops 6, Reckoning left me with the same feeling I had about other parts of the campaign. Strong ideas, weak finish.
You kidding me? That's sick! Wait. Wait, what's going on? What's going on? Wait, what? No. Are you kidding me? Is this how it ends? What? No! This is how it ends! Are you
At the end of the day, I still think Black Ops 6 is one of the most divisive Call of Duty games ever made. It has an excellent campaign, a zombies mode that starts strong and stays interesting even when it stumbles, and a multiplayer mode that felt forgettable at best. Looking back on it now, I still think the game was fun. I just do not think it was as consistently good as I remember it being. The campaign had some genuinely excellent mission design and one of the better stories Call of Duty has delivered in recent years, but its final stretch loses steam. Zombies had a lot of ambition, a strong early narrative, and a few standout maps, but it was dragged down by the system bloat, reused ideas, and a rough DLC cycle. And multiplayer for me just never found its footing. Black Ops 7, and probably the next Modern Warfare as well, will likely have better support and stronger long-term momentum than Black Ops 6 did. And honestly, that is probably for the best. Because as much as I enjoyed Black Ops 6, it also felt like a game that never fully capitalized on its own potential. If you made it this far, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you thought about Black Ops 6 as a whole, and what you thought about this video. Until our next adventure, have a great night and a great rest of your day. Goodbye.